let's talk about this number one seed in the NFC East and the realistic possibilities of where these teams stand. Because right now it's a three-team race. You got the Philadelphia Eagles, you got the Dallas Cowboys, and the San Francisco 49ers all sitting at a 10-3 tie. Now, 49ers obviously have the tiebreaker over the Eagles because the 49ers smashed the Eagles. And as of right now, if the season ends today, the Cowboys would have that tiebreaker. That's why the Cowboys are number one in the NFC East over the Eagles. But if we play out this scenario and say if everybody wins out, then the Eagles would ultimately have that tiebreaker due to their common opponent records and the common opponent records and their conference records. And I'll put that list there again because that's the list in the order that we will look at in terms of tie-breaking scenarios. So what do I believe is going to happen? And what would it take for each of these teams? Well, the 49ers, they have the lead right now. So if they win out, and if we take a look at their schedule, we'll put it up here. You got the Cardinals, you got the Ravens, you got the Commanders, and you got the Rams. For the 49ers to clinch that number one seed and have home field advantage and have that first round bye, if they just win out, which is easily possible, beating the Cardinals, the Ravens, the Commanders, and the Rams, the one game that sticks out right there is obviously that primetime matchup with on Christmas against the Baltimore Ravens. I actually like the 49ers in that game. If it was in Baltimore, I'd probably like the Ravens in that scenario, but now the Ravens got to travel all the way to San Francisco, and they got to be on the road, and they got to take on the 49ers, so it doesn't really bode well for them in that scenario. So, 49er fans, if you guys win out, which is a very high probability, and even if you go 3-1, there's a high possibility that you will clinch it because you have the tiebreaker over the Cowboys and the Eagles. So it would take a lot to answer your questions. It would take a lot for the Cowboys to clinch the number one seed at this point as we're getting a tighter window with 4 weeks left in the season. It would take a lot. The 49ers would have to, I would probably say they would have to lose at least 2 games and to give the Cowboys a little bit of wiggle room. But obviously, it's as simple as if the 49ers drop a game and the Cowboys win out, that would get them the number one seed, with the Eagles losing one more game as well. So that's what you would be looking at. I personally think that the 49ers are going to hang on to that number one seed, and they control their own destiny. And I could see them getting that number one seed. Now, you take a look at the Eagles. What about their possibilities of getting it? Well, I think they really screwed up. They had a really good stretch, right? Starting in week 7 with the Miami Dolphins. They went 5-1, go until week 13 against the San Francisco 49ers. But they really had their chance to put their stamp on the league and take care of the 2 contenders in their conference, the 49ers and the Cowboys, and they completely wet the bed there, losing 42-19 against San Francisco at home and losing 33-13 to the Dallas Cowboys at AT&T Stadium. They really ruined their chances, and like I said, unbiased and realistically, as a fan, I'll say that they're frauds, but unbiased and realistically, I think there's a lot of flaws that came out. Now, do I think they're going to completely tank and lose the last 4 games? No, come on, let's be real. But it does get a little bit difficult because if you look at the schedule, you got the Seahawks. Of course, that depends on Geno Smith and his status, and obviously they're hungry because they got to get back into that playoff contention, and they're on a 4-game losing streak, and they're going to come with some energy on Monday night. Then you take on the Giants twice, right? And the Giants are currently on a 3-game winning streak with Tommy DeVito, and so anything can go, especially in those division games. Then you got the Arizona Cardinals, who have a somewhat solid defense, and Kyler Murray's back, so that would probably be the one that I would expect the Eagles to take care of. But I would say, and I'm calling it now, I think the Eagles will drop at least 2 games, and they will go 2-2 in those final 4 games, and they will end the year with the 12-5 record. That's my prediction. I'm telling you right now, that's most likely what's going to happen. I don't trust the Eagles. And so with that being said, let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys, because the Dallas Cowboys, what does it take, right, to get the number one seed, to get the NFC East? Well, as a Cowboys fan, I'm here to tell you, I've kind of let that ship sail. At least I'm not holding out for that number one seed probability. It's just, it's a lot needs to happen. And if we get to week 17, week 18, and the situation's there, let's talk about it. But I think the more realistic scenario at this point for me is the NFC East. And I think that's a lot more important because if you at least win the division, you're going to get that number 2 seed and you're at least guaranteed to host one playoff game, which is super important for the Dallas Cowboys, knowing their struggles on the road and knowing their success at home. So if you want my opinion, if you want what I believe is going to happen, I believe the Dallas Cowboys really have a prime situation here to grab the NFC East. And like I said, I'll tell you, this is my prediction here. I think the 49ers are going to go at least 3-1 at least 3-1, and it would not surprise me if they went 4-0 and they won out barring any injuries, and that would lock in the number 1 seed for them. Now, what I believe is going to happen is, like I said, I believe the Philadelphia Eagles cannot be trusted. And on paper, it looks like a pretty simple schedule for them to walk into the playoffs with 4 games left. I don't believe so. I believe they drop 2 games and they go 2-2 in the final 4 games. Now, if you do the math, that's going to drop them down to a 12-5 record. Where do I believe the Dallas Cowboys are going to end up? If you look at those final 4 games, at worst, they're going to go 2-2. At best, obviously 4-0, but I got them right in the middle. I believe the Dallas Cowboys go 3-1 in the next 4 games, and that would put them at a record of 13-4. And with the Eagles dropping 2 games, that would mean that the Cowboys would win the NFC East because they would have a better record by 1 game over the Philadelphia Eagles, and that would mean that the Cowboys would be in as the number 2 seed, and they would be hosting whoever is in that number 7 seed. That is my prediction. That is what I believe is going to happen. Bookmark this, save this. I believe that day will come, and we'll come back to week 18 when all is said and done, and we'll see where the Dallas Cowboys are at. But I think the Cowboys will be NFC East champs.